Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Today I have Eric Lee, one of the co-founders of one of my favorite string brands, Toroline, on the podcast. It's a pretty hyped up brand in the string market nowadays. You're going to see a lot of players with this string. There are many different options. Of course, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the journey today, the partnership with Karoo, which has been very successful. But first of all, how are you today, Eric?
Doing well. Starting my morning early. Super excited to join the podcast. Huge fan of the channel. I'm a tennis nerd at heart, so I'm really glad we could make this happen. And shout out to all tennis nerds. It's our number one customer. Without them, I wouldn't even be here today. It's actually my first podcast ever. So thanks for having me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Podcasts are interesting. I mean, it's a good way now to reach out to people, but also to have some good conversations, I think. I see more and more podcasts in any space, but also I think there's more tennis, content creators and stuff. And I think that's been a positive thing for your journey to work with guys like Karoo, for example, who's not only a content creator, he's a great content creator, but he's a very good player as well. And you're a good player yourself, right? So you used to play D1 college.
Yeah, UC Santa Barbara. And then my co-founder, Chris, played at UCLA. Me, him, and one of our pro players, Jason Jung, all grew up playing, SoCal tennis in LA. We've known each other since we were 10 years old. We're a little older now, so yeah, it's been a fun crew to work with. We're always prototyping, testing new stuff. Jason's game has evolved quite a bit. He switched quite a few rackets. He basically used every lineup in our lineup. So he's tested every string for us. He's still 200 in the world, so not bad. Himself, he's gotten up to I think close to 114 in the world. Was number one Taiwanese player, and he's been super helpful in just kind of helping the brand evolve. We've changed quite a bit. Got some SKUs, phased out some SKUs. I think the stuff that we have right now is really good. So we're just trying to do new colors, prototype some new stuff. So it's been a really fun process.
How much more fun is it to work with something, I don't know your work history, you can get into that if you want, but to work with something you're passionate about, like tennis in this case, over a job that it's maybe fine, but your passion is not in there?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more fun, I would say, for sure. And then just being a tennis nerd, I'm always tinkering with equipment. Every time I lose a match, it's new racket. They're I got to switch my letting from 3 to 9 to 12 o'clock. I don't know, it's a bit of an issue, but it's what I love to do. I like to try new rackets. It's probably deep down inside is me just trying to find an excuse to buy more rackets and, have an excuse for my wife not to complain about it. So, it's really fun for me. I grew up studying, economics, accounting, worked at Deloitte, did, public accounting for quite a while, and then worked at a couple startups in finance. And yeah, we've been working on it since about 2018. First couple of years, it's hard to grow a brand in a space that's been so developed, and there's a lot of great brands there. Fortunately for us, we kind of found what works, and we did a lot of stuff, to be honest, that wasn't scalable to help scale the brand. And Omakase, which you helped out with, I think it's not how scalable. Part of our business. We literally print everyone's name on the backside of the packaging, hand select two blends. We read all the surveys. Oh, there you go. Nice. So yeah, it's a lot of time and effort, but I think to really grow a business, you have to think what's not scalable to scale, and look at kind of what other brands will do and will not do. And it's just tough for the big brands to print everyone's name on the package. It's they're just not going to do it. They just don't have the time, resources, and effort that they just don't need to do it as well. So but yeah, it's been fun, man. I really enjoy just data. So we get a lot of good data from the Omakase concept, and we see what people what rackets are using, what tension they're using, what brands they're using for string. So it just really helps out with conversion as well, right? There's so many options for strings. There's multis, co-polys. Within a co-poly, there's huge range of stiffness, shapes, colors. So yeah, it just kind of using that data to make better, decisions. for our customers and make sure we get it right. And we don't always get it right like the first time. But over time, I think, we understand like what rackets are more string sensitive and kind of, are able, like I test like every racket on planet Earth, like, Head Speed, Wilson Blade, like we test all the other brands, all other sticks. Because, some strings work well in some rackets and it doesn't work in other rackets. So we got to really narrow down what doesn't work. So the customers get the best experience.
Yeah, I think that's sorry. I think that's a great idea. I loved it when you put it to me the first time we talked about it, and I was like, because I think the custom experience is something missing in tennis, and the problem is that people, and that's I think is the reason there's so many people who want to change rackets. Maybe is that there's not that much information. I mean, I tried to kind of fill a gap with that. There are many other reviewers that do a great job as well, but the issue is in many shops and people in the general kind of population just going to some coach or the club shop at the place where they play, and there's not much information. Oh, here's a pure drive, here's a speed, here's something, and they don't think more about that. And then tensions seem to be in people's head, like from maybe 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, where you string a poly 57 pounds, like getting up to sitter levels, which hurts many players' arms and don't really do what the poly should do. I know Karu strings very high.
Sure, yeah. And a lot of the pros are using pro stock string too, so I don't think it's great to replicate what the pros do because a lot of times they're not even using like a retail stick, right? So, but yeah, like it's a really fun process for me just to engage with the customers, right? We get a lot of email chains going on, and we also have like a chat box on our website. Like I could go 30 minutes sometimes with a customer trying to figure out what's the best blend for them. Some customers want to try every Toroline string, and and along the way, we we're with them through email or chat box or DM us on Instagram, or we'll try to find the best blend.
Yeah, but it's been a similar journey for me, like with the racket consultations and with talking to people. Sometimes I deal with one WTA pro a little bit, and like the amount of combinations to test in strings, like gut mains, gut crosses, going down in tension, then trying two different polys, which is like the hybrids is a big thing now, right? People want to try hybrids. What happens if I put this string there and this in the crosses, then I drop the tension 2 pounds, And on the pro level, this is like a Grand Slam player, right? So it happens, they are trying things. People are more and more aware of that. You can actually get something out of the equipment. Of course, for us tennis nerds with this lifelong disease of testing new stuff, it's easy to blame the equipment. Like you said, you leave a match and you're like, it's probably because, I had 2 grams of lead, or I'm not used to this Prince Phantom, or the Prestige is not giving me enough power. That is part of the game. That happens in golf. That happens in most gear equipment. I mean, I think most people know that it's about how much we move and how we feel on the day and that stuff. It's not the equipment's fault, but it's a fun process. And once you find something you like, it gets quite a lot more fun, I would say. Like then you have a confidence in that you went through the process at least to find something. For you, when it comes to like the products, you're pretty, I would say, famous for the different color options, right? How important to that, like, is that to the customer? Like to have, I want a pink, I want a purple, I want a green, I want a blue string. How important is that in the process?
It's definitely a factor. And the string color does impact the playability. So, like for example, Wasabi Carbon plays a little different than the Wasabi Green. So there is like a performance, consideration. But I think what makes us a little different as well are the combinations like K-pop, for example, which Crew uses. It's like a neon pink mains, neon yellow cross. It has like a really cool color shift. I don't know, maybe it distracts your opponent. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we want to be a fun brand. So like I almost forgot to make like a basic color like for some of our SKUs because we're so focused on the colors, but we have a ton of new colors that will drop, hopefully in the next, call it 6 to 12 months. Next up is a neon orange, which is, I think, going to be really cool. A lot of players or, a lot of customers have been asking for it. So who knows? Maybe we do a tennis nerd, like a black and neon orange hybrid. Yeah, comment below if you think that's something that the world needs.
I would write a comment straight away. I think it's very much needed.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a neon orange Toro Toro. Toro Toro is one of our best sellers. It's a 6-sided copoly. It'll be in a 123 millimeter gauge. Yeah. So I'm super excited when that releases. Everyone's been asking us for neon orange, so I was like, all right, we'll get it for you guys.
When you have now like players, and it's been in part of your process, like with Jason, for example, who's played really high level tennis, plays really high level tennis, 200 in the world at the moment. What string is he using, by the way, at the moment? Because he's been testing everything.
Caviar. And I think, yeah, Caviar. I think you reviewed it in like, I want to say 2019. I was like so pumped when you reviewed it. Like we were just small ran back then. Like when you posted, I was like so shocked. I was like, oh man, you reviewed it. I was like watching it second by second. And he actually gave us a very, generous review. So really appreciate that. You could have ended Toroline right then and there. So appreciate you giving us a kind review there. But yeah, he's been using Caviar for quite some time. Like we've tried some other, Coolfly hybrids, but he just really trusts that string. Like he played, I want to say Escobedo in Mexico and in humidity. And, like players, like they just like have a preference for like one stick over another. It's like, I don't know, it's superstition. And sometimes like it's the balances off, right? Like, or the QCs is not great, even on pro stock rackets. And like he didn't want to switch rackets, like, and he went deep in the third set, and like he said it held up like really well. So he personally wants like a racket, that he can go like, at least 2 sets, maybe 3 sets without having to swap out. And at the challenger level, it's just like it's so costly. Like with the prize money, it's not there. String like 3 rackets like every day, it kind of like it adds up. It's not a lot, but over time, like with the travel, the hotel, airfare, meals, physio, all those costs, like you kind of just don't want to keep like having to string 3 rackets or 4 rackets every match, at least for like a 2 out of 3 set challenger match. Grand Slams, it's like another like you just got to go like 4 or 5 sticks fresh.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of Caviar when I reviewed them. Still am. My father still plays it, and I still love that string. I'm maybe more in wasabi mode right now, but Toro Toro is also growing, so it's a little bit in between. What I think I always appreciate with your strings is that, especially there are many options, but they're arm friendly, right? And I think that's what a lot of players on the club level enjoy, right? Because I think many look at the pros and okay, this guy plays all the power. Used to be like pros played pretty high tension polys. Now it's changing quite a bit. Like you see players from all over brands, all over like the Pro Tour playing pretty low tension, like 42 pounds with a Polytour Pro, which is a pretty soft string, for example. So that's changing up a little bit. Then you have Sinner, of course, playing 62 pounds. So there's all kinds of preferences. But I always think that your strings are giving good like snapback and spin, but also take care a little bit of the arm, which I think is great for the club player, because I think most players want to use poly now, although there's a case for multis, especially if you have arm issues. But it's just nice that you have that option and you can play with it without worrying too much that the stiffness gonna create an issue, because I think the strings overall are more of a problem than the rackets in most cases.
Yeah, that's actually kind of how we found it Toroline. Jason, I was customizing his sticks back in like 2016. And yeah, he just like had a really like stiff setup. I think it's also a function maybe of the racket and definitely the string. If you go on like Tennis Warehouse University, it has like all the stats, right? And at some point he was like, having wrist issues, shoulder issues. I showed him the stats. I was like, look, the string you're using is one of the stiffest strings on the market. Let's try, maybe some hybrids, some other softer strings, and see if there's anything out there that would fit your game and your playing style without, obviously hurting your arm and your wrist. Just because pros put on so much time on the court, right? Like, and they're playing like different surfaces, using different balls, like so many like, variables that are changing on them that it's like, it's a lot going on, right? So we took a step back, tried a couple strings on the market, didn't really find anything he really, really liked. And he was number 1 Taiwanese player at the time. So one of the large string manufacturers in the world is based in Taiwan. So we had to connect, reach out to them, see if they could help us out. They're super happy, to kind of figure out something for Jason, gave us a couple of prototypes. And then, yeah, now here we are with like over 40 SKUs, getting a little out of control, but honestly, we're just going to like launch more colors. So next year we might have over 100 SKUs.
How important is it for the consumer to have like many options, colors and different stiffnesses, shapes? I mean, the string market is a jungle, right? We've all said that, but
Yeah.
uh, it's something the customer wants as well, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't be
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Like it can get overwhelming, I totally feel for that. But that's partially why we came up with the omakase concept. It's to kind of look at what their preferences are, narrow down what we think would work for them in their specific racket, for their specific playing style. But I do believe that more options are better, just because I think string is such a unique, just a unique experience for the customer. Like everyone's playing style is different. Like the rackets are always evolving. Like I think it's a moving target. Like what may work in a Blade V9 today, like may not work in a Blade V10, 2 years from now. So I think it's better to have more options than not enough options. It is really hard for us to manage it for sure. Luckily, I'm a accountant by trade, so I do a lot of reconciling and inventory management, which is a lot of part of the business when you have over 40 SKUs. And we package everything in LA, so we take sometimes two strings from like two different manufacturers and package it into like one hybrid, which I think a lot of other brands don't do as well. So that does add a layer of like complexity into managing the business and just managing inventory, right? Because I think string is something where you just never can sell out of. Like people rely on it for tournaments, for everyday play. So I think it would be a bad luck if we ever ran out of wasabi or something like that. So we always make sure we're like overstocked. And as we're rolling in new colors, like we're always making sure like what's the next cycle for us to produce again. And like for example, when K-pop launched, like it had crazy demand. I didn't realize it would have that much demand. We actually sold out like in the first during the first launch. So like now we just like overorder, make sure we're never out of stock.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. When you talk about K-pop, like how was the process of talking to Karu? Like, I mean, he was playing with the Ionic string, I think, and then he wanted to switch to your brand. And how was the process there to get him to a mix of strings that would work for him, especially since he's quite a specific player, like kind of like he calls himself Walmart Agassi, and he takes the ball early. He plays with a higher tension than most players, and with maybe a little bit more through the court than most players, but plays really high level. So, how was that process?
Yeah, I would not recommend his tension for his, for the average, 4-5-5-0 player, for sure not. He's string anywhere. It's a bit of a range depending on the conditions, and it's like clay versus hard, but he's going from like anywhere from like 58 to like maybe even 62. But the process was pretty straightforward. Like my friend Jason, Peru's based in LA as well, so he played at UCLA. It was easy connecting with them. Jason referred us to him, and he was actually, not officially playing on the tour at that time. He was just playing UTR events. So I met him up in Newport where they were having a UTR event, and he was like already cleaning up on the UTR circuit. Like every other week, he was showing up, winning 4 matches, taking home the prize money, and it was like pretty clinical on his end. But yeah, we like gave him probably like 6 or 7 setups, and he really just vibed with the K-pop setup. So yeah, I think it was probably like from when we met up with them the first time, like it was probably like 3 months, and then we launched K-pop. So it was a very quick process. Yeah, and like his racket, he's been going back and forth. I think he's been using. He initially started with the V-Core 95, went with the Percept 100D. I think on his story he posted like picture of both rackets side by side. And I think he's gonna do like a live stream later today to talk about kind of what racket he's going forward with. But yeah, it's really fun working with the pros. Like it's there's a lot of moving targets, like like for switching rackets, right? So we kind of have to like figure out what tension works better in like a V-Core 95 versus a Percept. It's like quite a different racket, right? So yeah, it's a fun process, and part of me is like I feel like I'm like kind of competing through the player as well. So when I watch his matches, like I'm like on the edge of my seat, really rooting for him. and I feel it when they lose too. So it's you know, it's a fun process, but yeah, it's, you know, I take it serious at the same time.
Yeah, and I talked to him on we chat quite a lot on via Instagram, right? And I talked to him about the racket change as well, because obviously things change, and sometimes you fall in love with a racket and that works really well for a period, and then something changes, you want to go back to the old one, you want to go to a completely new one, right? But we'll see. I have my money on the V Core 95 at this moment, but we will see what happens, you know. But of course, then you have to adjust as well, and it's also fun when you know players to watch their matches like on stream. Now you can actually stream challenger matches right through the ATP website or some sub website of theirs. So I think that's great. So you can follow these really, really excellent players like Jason and Karu play on I would say like the second highest tour, right? That's challengers just below the ATP 250 and the 500 and 1000. So these guys can ball. But as you said, it's not an easy life. You need to travel. You need to pay for everything. It's not that easy to get sponsors. I think any sponsor is really appreciated for these guys. So, but great tennis, and I really urge anyone listening that to check some challenger tennis because it's live streaming and it's free, so you don't need any tennis TV.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, like the level is super high. Like the way they changed the point systems, like I think Karu got some guy that was like top 200 for like a 50-point challenger. Like I don't think he would have seen that like maybe a year or two ago. So it's yeah, it's tough, man. It's I think maybe they could rework the point system a little bit, keep people in certain like at certain levels and not have them like, you know, if you're like top 100, you probably shouldn't play like a challenger. Like you probably should stay on the 250s and above, but you know, that's where the points are. Like I think there's some challengers that give out a decent amount of points now. And if a, you know, top player feels like they can, you know, at least semi or final, it's like it's worth it for them. So you get like really high ranked players playing challengers now, which is you would not have seen that before. Because they're not paying any like appearance fees or anything like that for these challengers.
No, of course not. And it's interesting, like you saw in Sardinia now with these longer masters, it was like suddenly like 15 top 100 players in a challenger. Obviously, like decent prize money, maybe, but
is that people like a 175? I think.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not sure, but
like it's like that's like so many points for a challenger.
yeah. So then you have like a beast nest of really strong top 100 players trying to get matches, partly because like when the master is still ongoing for so long, like there may be not any ATP tournaments, so you need to sign up for something else, and then the level and the points are enough to actually warrant that little trip, maybe not too far either. So there's definitely some very, very powerful challenger tournaments there these days, you know, and that's a fun part of it. When it comes to like getting pro players and having your brand, how important is that, like to have your brand visible also among like top 100, top 200 pros?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to sign a, you know, top 100 player for sure. It is challenging to do obviously during the season. Like they're not obviously gonna do any testing while they're, you know, actively playing tournaments. Granted, we do have one player that's like top 200 that's testing for us right now. He's like I think taking a couple of weeks off, so we'll see like if he likes the prototype that we're working on. But I think it does add like a level of like credibility to the brand. But you know, I truly believe like the playability is already there. It's just like marketing kind of like, you know, strategy at this point in terms of signing like a top 100, top 200 player with the brand. But you know, hopefully Guru could be that top 100 player for us. So maybe you already have him, but it just takes some time. You know, you just need a lot of months under your belt. Like he doesn't have a full 12 months under his belt of playing events. And the first like 3-4 months it's just like you're not going to get any points, right? Because you can barely get into like ITFs like 15s and 25s, but he's 1 to 25. So it's a bit of a process. It just takes time, and you can't really jump overnight. There's a few players that have done it, but they've also received like wild cards, you know, at big events, and they're able to make runs. But you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Guru, you know, if he got a wild card into a big event, like he could take out like a top 100 player. Like I would not be shocked. And you know, he's played like practice sets with like Taylor Fritz, and granted, you know, maybe Taylor Fritz is not going 100% in practice, but you know, I think he took him out like 6-2. So he has a game, but it's a process to get the opportunity to play these like top 100 players at big events.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely possible, definitely potential. Like you've seen some stories where the player is lower ranked, but then makes a quite huge leap, like a big strides. Because if you're playing challengers, I mean, it's a step, but it's not like a huge step to actually getting like a decent draw in ATP 250. You get a good win there. Suddenly, your confidence steps up another level, and then you can unlock something, and you keep working on your game. So I think you can't really count guys out and say, oh, he's going to be a top 300 only. Who knows? Like it's quite a cutthroat, tough environment for everyone these days. Like anyone can lose to anyone. It seems like within a certain top 300-400 players. And we saw Novak today lost to Mahac. Mahac is top 100 player, of course, but still, anything can happen in tennis. When it comes to...
I would say he lost like the last 6 games to Novak. I don't know the last time I've seen Novak lose 6 games in a row. It's like, yeah, so I mean, the level is it's insane, like at that level. But yeah, it's a bit of a process to get the opportunities. And when you do get the opportunities, you really can't blink, like if you are able to get into qualities of like a 250 and you qualify, like you really got to like take advantage of it and do like a quarters or something to really make an impact on the point system.
Yeah. One thing you said, which was quite interesting, but by the way, did you watch that Novak match?
I saw highlights. Yeah, I think I'm in LA, so
you're
and have kids. When I can get sleep, I try to get as much sleep as I can. But yeah, I saw the highlights. I was like, oh yeah, kind of shocked, but we'll see what happens at Roland Garros. But I saw also Nadal's going to play Zverev, so that's going to be. I'll try to. Yeah, I don't know what the timing will be for that match, but I'll try to watch that one for sure. I'm a huge Nadal fan.
Yeah, me too. I think, in Novak's case, because I played and then I had lunch at the club and then I saw part of that match. They have TV screens with tennis, obviously, in a tennis club. And so, Novak was completely behaving quite weirdly, like throwing a game at 4-4, losing it with some weird points and then like holding his head in the changeover. And then he won the second set 6-1 and then he lost his third, which I didn't see, 6-love. So something's off with him, but he might, he's a class player, so he might get it done in at the French Open. But yeah, it's a really open tournament, the French Open this year. It's very, very open.
Yeah, I think it's the first time like he hasn't hit a final, or I don't think he's hit any finals this year in 2024. No. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely surprising. Have you ever hit with a Novak stick before, pro stock?
Yeah, I have. I have one of his rackets at home, right? So
nice.
The newest one. It's a good stick,
one, but it wasn't strong with the setup, so it was like hard to, get a really good feel for it because gut and alley power is such a unique kind of a hybrid, and I think it was like strong like full poly, so it felt a bit firm. I thought it was going to play a little more plush, but I don't know. It felt like firmer than I was anticipating. I think maybe it could also be all the lead tape that he puts on it. It's a pretty hefty stick.
Yeah, it's not really like the plushest stick. It's not like a PT57A, which I've raved about a lot, but it gives you less power. This one is a little bit firmer. It doesn't have that super pocketing. It's a good stick. It's pretty demanding, of course, 95 square inches, 18, 19 pattern, but it's not impossible to. Like I struggle. Like I have Andy's racket as well with his specs, and that's a racket I can't swing hardly. Like it's very tough to play properly. Like it's
I think Ralph's like it's done a lead tape above the handle, and I think it might even have like silicone in the handle as well. But have you seen his like I think you posted about his Yonex stick? He had like lead tape, like basically the whole frame was like. I was like, that's kind of wild. But yeah,
I think you take something out of these kind of power frames when you put too much weight on them. Like I feel like that they should be played a little bit lighter to get more out of the racket. Like so you can swing it faster. But of course, he has his way of playing and he knows what he likes. But it looks weird on an E-Zone to see, E-Zone 100 especially, to see like the whole racket full of lead tape, like the whole head was full.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess he said he customized it himself. So I don't know. Or like at least the first stick that he bought at the store. But yeah, I think that's like, I don't know. It's a lot of lead tape, but he knows what he likes. So. But yeah, interesting to see him switch this late in his career. But I think a lot of the game is evolving. I've hit with like a PT 57A. I actually have like a Andy Murray one as well. But yeah, it's just like it's hard to like hit through the court. It feels amazing if you're like just set hitting, and it's plush if you got like a gut and polyhybrid in it. I feel like it's hard to like really hit through the. I mean, granted, these pros are swinging like way faster than I am. Um, but yeah, it's just like I feel like the game has changed quite a bit. Like Alcaraz, I mean, he just clocks the ball through the court. So, and he's got a very stiff setup, you know, with full bed of like RPM blast. But you know, it's way different than like a PT57A.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see a lot of those anymore. Like, I mean, I love them in many ways, but even like for my level game, I feel like you don't get it. And I like, okay, I'm meaning I'm playing weaker players, but it's still like tough to get anything on the ball. Like, it's very tough defending. If I play a guy who played like futures and then now he's 5-10 years ago, and we have good rallies, but like I get nothing with that racket. I need like some help from the racket. I think most people realize that, and you're seeing that now with a lot of players, even on the tour, that they need help because it's the game is so much faster, so much more physical. Balls coming faster to you, and if you have like a really nice feeling small head, you're gonna get some short balls towards the other guy, and then you're dead, right?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, the point is very quickly if you don't put it in the right place at that level. Yeah, like Jason uses I'm actually testing his stick right now. He's got a E-Zone 100 extended length. Yeah, it's super powerful. He's got like lead at throat at the top. But yeah, this is a super powerful racket, and the extended length kind of helps him on the serve. Like he tried going back to like standard length, and it just like for him, you just lose so much on the serve that yeah, at that level, you really need a lot of free points on the serve, like, or else you're just working too hard too early, and to go deep in the tournament, like, cannot be playing too many points,
Yeah, 100%. Like the service is undervalued, even if you would think some people would say it's overestimated. I would say it's undervalued. Like all these pros that play high level, like they need. If I think Opelka said it when he was testing a lot of rackets, he wanted to switch from his Wilson. He was testing a lot of rackets, and he's like, if it's 1% worse on serve, especially for him, of course, but he's not going to switch, right? So it's like there's no chance if the racket gives him a weaker serve that he's going to play with that racket. And I think, okay, Opelka is an extreme case because he's living a lot on the serve, but still, for most pros, you need that. You need a weapon to get that 1-2 easy combo or some easy unreturned serves. Like, you need those points. Otherwise,
yeah, I think that's what Cruz. Yeah, I think that's what Cruz is kind of dealing with right now. Like from talking to him, he said he feels more comfortable serving with the V-Core 95. But then like everything else with the Purse Up 100D just feels like a little more natural for him. So he's playing a little bit with the lead tape. He has quite a bit of lead tape in the 100D, and it's like it's a lot of stick and a lot of strings, right? With a really dense string pattern. So it's like it's a bit of a balance. Like, do you go with the serve? Do you go with everything else? I don't know. It's tough, but yeah, I definitely don't want to overthink it. Mid season though, I was like, this big one, you just go with it.
Yeah, mid season is tough to do any changes when you're playing pro, right? That's a tough one. I mean, I think it's tough to adjust to new rackets all the time. Like, it's been what I do, but it is difficult. Like, as soon as you vibe with a racket, and then you're like, oh, I'm playing well now, I'm having good practices, and then you get 3 rackets to test, your game goes to the toilet straight away. Like, it's just like your whole muscle memory, where you place. As soon as you start playing like matches with a different racket or points play, you're like, what is going on here? I was so happy with the other racket. But you have to do it. So
yeah, I definitely overthink it myself. Like, if I lose a match, I'm like, I have to rethink everything and like go back to the drawing board. But what stick are you using right now? Or like, what's your like, 2 or 3 sticks that you're kind of vibing with right now?
Yeah, now it's almost like Switch territory now. I'm playing the new Prince Phantom, the 100X, and I have 2 string patterns I like. Right, so there's one heavy 320 gram unstrung. That's the 1820 that I like. Okay. A lot. I don't customize it. It's fine as is. At least the one I have now. Then if I buy another one, I don't know how that's gonna be depending on QC. But I also have the 305, which is let it up a little bit to bump up the swing. My swing was pretty low, right? So those 2 I can go in between because it's pretty much the same racket, just one open pattern, one tight pattern. Now the one I customize.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's been very good. And I've been using different strings. I've been using the Super Toro. I think I told you that, the Super Toro, which I like. I'm going to try the Toro as well now. That's the next experiment. And it's been good for the arm because it's pretty low stiffness. And with your strings, I string at 49 pounds. So it's not going to be like too much for the arm, I think. And even against pretty strong players, it's been holding up. Like, it's not like a noodle where I don't get anything and I get completely smoked. So yeah, I'm happy with those frames. But by maybe next week we'll see. But as you know how it is. But
it's being a tennis, it's a lifestyle. Like
yeah.
it's an expensive lifestyle, but it's fun. It's fun. I always like trying new sticks that make it to market. So it's and like for us too, like a lot of customers, they ask us, what string should I use? And they tell me the racket. So like if I've never used the racket, it's hard for me to make a recommendation. So I basically have to like acquire every racket on planet Earth to give good advice to the player. But if I've never used it, I'll just tell them like, I can't really give you solid recommendation because I never used the stick, but like these are like kind of our top sellers. And if you're looking for something stiffer or softer, like kind of like here's the options. But there's so many sticks, like even within like lines, like like Pure Strike, there's like I don't know, like 4 or 5 variations of the Pure Strike, with different weights, different string patterns. Even the blade, I think has like 4 or 5, and not even all of them have made it to market yet. I think some of them are still like maybe only about in Europe or that haven't made it to the US yet. So some people will be like, oh, I use I think it's like the 101L or something, which I think it's like maybe equivalent to like the Steam Pro Stock that a lot of players are using. But I don't think they sell that in the US. So like someone, messaged me and like I use the 101L and I customize it with lead here. What should I use? But I don't think they sell in the US yet. So it's like hard for me to make a recommendation. But yeah, just it's fun for me to test all the sticks because there's so many out there, but have to narrow it down to what I think are the most popular ones. And through Omakase, we actually see like what sticks are trending. And a lot of people use like the Pure Aero 98. That one's a very popular stick. Blades popular. What else was like? I say some of the other Wilsons are pretty popular as well. Like we see a lot of people with like Pro Staff, 100X or the 97. But yeah, it's just like, those are all rackets I've tried, but yeah, there's some out there that just are kind of like newer models. Like I haven't tried the Prince, but that's on my list to demo.
Yeah, there's so many rackets. Like, okay, the string jungle is there, but there's also a racket jungle, right? But what you see in rackets as a strong connection is that, okay, Federer, even though he's retired, people would still go pro staff. Like, I think he was carrying that whole franchise for so long. I mean, okay, people like Dimitrov, but it's not really the same. So people will go pro staff because they know the name. Maybe they know it from Sampras, Edberg, these guys. But the pro staff is going to be popular, even though it's quite demanding, right? It's a demanding racket. I think like the blade is just a little bit easier to use, and then you get a blade 100, which I think like for many club players, I think it's important to know your own. I would say to have a bit of self-awareness because I think that's lacking sometimes when I do consultations, and I always tend to ask for like a clip, because if you see that their game, it's a bit easier to give a good recommendation and say, okay, like this maybe using a 95 is not the correct one. Or using this high tension or whatnot, but there are definitely some patterns there. But now there's an option. Oh, I want to play with a blade. Well, you can play with a blade 104 or 100 because it's easier than to play with a blade 98, which you need to have pretty good game to actually get anything out of that racket. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Also, I think it's play match with it too. Like sometimes you're just casually hitting like a demo stick, it might feel good from the baseline. Because everything's kind of like in your pocket and it's pretty casual, but when you play a match, it's like a whole different beast depending on obviously the level. But yeah, like sometimes like I'll play, just like a, custom or just like a, quick casual hit with my buddies, and yeah, I'll be like, oh, it feels amazing. And then I go to a match and it's just like, I'm just too slow for the stick because it's too much stick, like some of these pro stock rackets. So, yeah, definitely got to be aware of kind of your limits and what really fits your game. But I've tried everything. Like I have so many sticks right now. I need a string and test out, but I've basically tried every racket.
I think you're doing a great service though, because like as with the Omakase especially, but also as a string manufacturer, right? Like that you're aware of what's going on in the marketplace, like how these rackets play. Now there's more dampening in the rackets, which affects how you choose the string. You talked about string sensitive rackets, which I think is a very important topic. It's quite hard to define because some rackets just don't gel with a certain string. Like some rackets seems like, oh, this is made for 4G, for example, like, or this racket works perfectly with, caviar, but then the other racket doesn't work as well with caviar. And then you go to a wasabi. So then that's much better. So that's something I notice all the time, that if you're testing a racket, like, okay, and I often have to like cut out a string when I'm testing a racket, and I'm like, okay, this did not work at all. And I give it a second chance with another string, because otherwise you might give the racket like not enough time, or you just like, this is trash, when the string choice was
yeah. So some rackets play more muted, some play more crisp. So it's really, kind of a tinkering and trying different setups. And I think what makes it interesting too is the blend, the hybrid blends. Like it just gives you another level of complexity, which we're trying to, obviously help solve for the customer. But yeah, there's so many different combinations, and like, like one string might not play well in the radical, but plays well in the pure drive, right? It's like there's completely different rackets, and yeah, that's why we do our best. And I think we're gonna do like a blog too, kind of just highlight like, this is for this stick, we recommend this kind of setup. Obviously, tension will vary based on like player preference, but just kind of high level give out like, these hybrids work well in certain rackets. But, and not everyone may agree, but, I think it's just like a reference point for people to kind of figure out what combo works, should, have been tested with their stick.
I think that's a great idea. Like, I think people really like that. They like to hear kind of in-depth personal experiences, of players of different levels and different styles, and using different rackets, of course. But with all your testing, like, I have two questions really that I want to know is like, where do you store all your rackets? Because that's my issue. And like, do you have a racket right now that's been like, okay, this I'm switching to,
Yeah, they're kind of scattered. My wife yells at me quite a bit for leaving rackets down in the house. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just everywhere. I give out a lot of rackets too to like friends and family. Like if I use it, for a couple, I've tried every setup in it. Like there's no need to stock a racket, so I'll just gift it out. We donate rackets as well. But I probably sell way too many rackets. Like there's also some that like I'll just never let go of, like, some of the pro stocks that I have, because they're so near and dear to my heart. And I don't know, like they're not something that you can just go out and get. Also, those I keep, but if it's like a retail stick, I'll give it out eventually. Like there's no reason for me to hold like a late V8 or a V7 or something like that, So yeah, maybe we'll do a giveaway, like give out some free sticks to the tennis nerd community. Because I have like at least like 8 sticks I need to get rid of. Like they're just stocking up at this point. And there's more releases too that are coming out this year. So, I can't stock too many. I already have too much inventory as is.
Well, what did any racket that you tested recently like stand out to you and like, okay, I really like this, one or two sticks that you were like, okay, this is more nicer than I thought?
Yeah, I like Blade V9. I like that one. I think it's got a nice, like, it's responsive. It's not too demanding, I think, for like what you consider like a player stick, and I think it has really good feedback. Like if I miss, like I know what I did wrong. But sometimes like when I use, some other rackets, like maybe like, I don't know, pure drive, like sometimes like I'll hit it and I'm like, well, like what happened there? Like I don't know what I did wrong. But for like a blade, like it's kind of like a scalpel, so I really can tell like what's off, and there's not too much going on there. So like if I'm trying to test a string and compare it side by side, like I have like like 4 plates, I can really tell like, okay, what's the difference in the feel? Is the color impacting it? Like that new prototype that I sent to you, that the BS version, we ended up going with a different color because I noticed a different kind of feel and responsiveness from the just changing the color. Like it was not much that we changed. Like I was like, hey, like let me test a couple colors. They sent me a ton of samples. Side by side, I got all my like blades, like, basically within like the specs are actually good too on the Blade V9s relative to maybe previous lines. I think it's like one of their focuses that they did, and like I've caught in like other, like there's another player out there that wants to do a collab with us. I ordered the rackets. I won't mention the brand and out of respect, but like it was like way off. Like it was way under spec. The 2 rackets I compared were like off by like 6 grams, which I feel like is quite a bit for a player stick, right? Maybe if it's like an intermediate or beginner stick, like we can kind of deviate a little more. But I feel like like 6 grams is a bit much for me. because it's also the balance is off too, and it's still a lot of work to like reconfigure or just to match sticks that are that far off. And for me, like I want the stick to feel very close, right? Because I'm like if I hit two strings side by side, and like it could be the stick that I just don't like, right? There's one stick I vibe with, and then it's not necessarily like this string is better than, or this color is better than this color, or this model is better than this model. It could purely just be like the two sticks or one stick just plays better, right? So I just had to order another stick because like this one's too far off. Like I think it would just kind of ruin my like sample, testing. So yeah, I really like the Blade V9. What else is good? That's kind of what I stuck with so far. I really like the Pro Staff X for quite some time, but I feel like there's a little like there's I don't know some hot spots in it that that I just like it just wasn't super reliable for me in matches. And I also wanted to go with a slightly lighter stick. I just felt like maybe it was a little too beefy for me for the Pro Staff X, like a little too much racket, a little too much weight. So, I do customize the blade at like 3 and 9, and then I wrap some on the top of the handle. So it's not like that beefy. But I like to have it swing faster there. So I think this is like kind of a good fit for me, like my style.
What combo is that? Like wasabi green, and then what's in the cross of the VS?
Yeah, that's our new drop. It's called hybrid, and it's wasabi on the mains, so square shape mains, and then Toro on the cross. So yeah, I think wasabi's it's a really good string. It's just it could play a little thick in some sticks, right? Because it's square shapes. The way that they're measuring the cross section is from top to bottom, right? And if you compare that to like just like a round string, like there's like 4 parts like on the edge that you get from a square shape, but not from the round one, right? So if you just like purely put it on a scale and weigh the strings, like a 1, 2, 3 wasabi plays closer to like a 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 7 round. So I think in something like a blade where it's a little more muted, not as lively as like let's say like a pure Aero 90 or 100. I think it needs a little more like kind of liveliness, and Toro, it's a little crisper as well, which I like in the blade. So I think it's a good combo for it. And I string it like relatively lower tension, around like 48. It's been working well for me.
Yeah, that with that blade, it looks great, but it's also something I noticed. Like you can go string lower; they're pretty dependable. I also like the blades a lot. I thought they were from 100 to 104, 9 to 98. They were all solid, good quality control. Just like, I mean, nothing wow, but just this is a good stick. You can test strings with it. You can take it out for a match. It's a good stick. There's nothing weird.
Yeah, you know what you're getting,
but you
like,
yeah.
And also I got the Pro Stock one that they sell, like the Pro Lab one, like the glossy one. I'll shoot this right here. And actually, I prefer the regular retail version. I think maybe this one needs a little customization, but yeah, it felt a little like more crisp and like a little firmer. So yeah, but it's also good just to like test the retail sticks because 99% of the population they're not using like the Pro Lab stick, so it's just like it's good to test because there are some pro players that use it, but for the most part, when I make recommendations, like we're just testing retail sticks.
Yeah, the Pro Labs is kind of the H22 mold, right? So it's gonna have a little bit of a firmer, a little bit different spec. It's more powerful. Like it's a bit different, more different to get around, with the higher swing weight and stuff. So I think that's it's a beast of a stick. If you like it, you like it. But I think the blade is easier to use for most people, and maybe a little bit more, player friendly, I would say overall than the
yeah
Pro.
definitely. Like I came back down to earth. I like tried it. And I was like, nah, it's not for me. But it's cool to have, and it's I think it's cool that they offer it. Like I have a lot of respect for Wilson to offer what the pros use. A lot of other brands aren't doing that. Like if I ever made like rackets, like if I had Pro Stock rackets for whatever reason, like I would want to sell those as well. But yeah, I think it's cool what they're doing there. So shout out to Wilson.
Yeah, that was a good one from them. When it comes to hybrids, as we talked about, like how difficult for you is it to decide on a hybrid? I mean, you're testing everything yourself, testing the rackets, but when you're testing hybrids, something I've noticed is like you really need to think about why you're putting something in mains and crosses. You can always experiment, but you need to either write it down, which is something I'm trying to always put notes, like I'm testing this. And what you said I always try to do as well is to have 2 rackets of the same specs, and then you maybe try 1 mains, 1 crosses, and 1 crosses, 1 mains. So you at least get, okay, this happens in this racket, and it doesn't happen in that racket, and then so on. But how has your process been with like defining all these hybrid setups and doing the omakase?
It's been challenging, to be honest. It just takes time, and it's a bit of a process, because what do you think might work well, it usually, I don't know, it doesn't work out the way you think it would work out. You're like, okay, if I go firm on the main, shape mains, and I go a little softer on the cross, like this is it. But like when you take out a core, like it has to work well in like basically like most rackets, right? Like if I have like 10 rackets from like, I don't know, let's say 1 from like 2 from Avalon, 3 from Wilson, like 3 from like Dunlop, and 3 from Prince. Like it's got to work like pretty good across all rackets. So it's got to be universal in that standpoint. But yeah, like I just like when I'm driving in LA and there's a lot of traffic, so there's a lot of time to think through, like and kind of play out in my mind like what I should try, and what's kind of, also too when I'm making new string too, like should I go square shape? Should I go 6-sided? Should I go 8-sided? Should I go round? Because when I get a prototype, I'm like, okay, this feels nice, but if I went with like 6-sided, I think it'd play a little better, right? So I'm definitely, it's a bit of a process to like kind of work through it in my head, like what makes sense. And then after I try it and I like it, I'll send it out to play testers that we work closely with, and some pros, and see what their thoughts on it are as well. Because what I like, everyone else may not like as well. So I need a consensus across the, like a decent sized population before we kind of take something to market. And omakase is also a good process of kind of like filtering through all these different like combinations, right? Because if they don't if we don't convert the customer in like 1 or 2 months, like it's probably like they didn't like the setup, right? So we have to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, why did they like it? And it's just a numbers game, right? With more data that you have, I think you can kind of filter out like what kind of hybrids make sense. And it's a moving target. Like we're going to drop new new strings, new models, new colors, new gauges, new shapes. So it's gonna be a moving target. And like I'm always thinking about it. Like I literally will be like driving on the 405 in LA. I don't know if you've ever driven on the 405 in LA, but spent a lot of time there. Just kind of like thinking through like what makes sense, like, and what kind of different adjustments should I make to the prototype that like I'm testing, right? Like, so that prototype that I sent you, it's a 1.23 millimeter 6-sided. I was like, oh, it's like, what if I went with like a square shape, but go thinner, right? Because it's like the square shape plays a little thicker. Like I go like a 1-2 so like that's coming in like 2 weeks. I'll send you some samples as well. But yeah, it's just like, there's also like only so many like combinations you can do as well, right? Like, so yeah, you can't like overthink it, and at some point you kind of have to lock it down, right? So, it's definitely a process.
Have you noticed with like customers and potential customers or people you meet around tennis clubs that they're getting more and more picky, or how picky are they with their strings? Like, do they notice a difference with like a 6-sided string over a square-shaped string or over a round string? Do you see any trends in that, or any like, do you get any insights from the people you talk to and people who buy from you?
Yeah, our customers are, I would say, maybe relative to other big brands, are a little more picky, right? Because a lot of people haven't heard about Toroline, unless like you're a tennis nerd or a tennis nerd referred you to us. We do get a lot of like organic referrals just through that process, right? But yeah, like they're definitely a lot more picky, I would say, than maybe what other brands experience, because they know what they like, right? They know what they want and what they're trying to achieve. So yeah, we definitely, they'll test and some, like I said, some customers will buy every SKU and they'll try it out and they'll kind of narrow it down, and then they'll ask us to make recommendations if they're trying to go like with hybrid, obviously. And we'll tell them too, like, if some strings like don't work well to hybrid, like we'll tell them like, hey, like I don't think that string you should hybrid. You should just keep it as is. It plays better as is. But we're happy for you to kind of experiment and obviously give us the feedback. We'd love to hear what you think. But yeah, they definitely have. They know what they want. So that's why we also try to make a lot of options, right? Because our customer base, they love experimenting. They love trying new adjustments to the current models, and they want to try different colors. And yeah, we get a lot of requests for sure.
It's a relatively cost-friendly, fun experiment. Like if you're buying loads of rackets, which I've done over the years, as you know, and you have, it gets costly, right? Money's running away. I mean, you can always resell them, or you can give them out like you did, and you can get some money back, or you can do a trade with someone, which has been my mode of operation. Like buy one, maybe trade it for something else, then you buy, sell that. Like it's a buy, sell trade. It takes a lot of time because you have to go to the post office.
Sure, yeah.
A lot, and but you also pick up the rackets, which is fun. So you're like, oh, here's a box, and then I take this box, and then you keep going, right? That did for many years. But when it comes to strings, it's relatively cost friendly in a term that, okay, I can buy 6 different sets and I try them, and then I can buy 3 more sets, and it's not like a huge breaking the bank moment, right? And then you hopefully get somewhere where you can buy a reel or 2 reels if you're hybriding, and you are at home. Or if you want to keep doing this, I mean, it's something I struggle with sometimes. I know that if you want to play competitive tennis, it's better to have a setup and to play with that. Like have a racket, buy 4, 3, whatever, depending on how much you play, and get a reel, and you're good. Like some overgrips, and you're a player, right? Like go and play, improve.
Yeah, in a perfect world. But sometimes when you buy the 4, the next week you're like, I need to switch models. And you're like, oh yeah, 4 rackets. I can't tell you that,
but so many times I don't even want to talk about
it. You're like, and we're like, oh, I gotta buy them all before they like sell out, or they switch to the new model, and then you end up stocking like 6 rackets that you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
I mean, I talked to Henrik, my fellow tennis nerd, and who plays a lot of tennis as well, and he's like, oh, I bought 3 of this, I bought 2 of this, I bought 4 of this, and then he's like, no, I'm gonna sell these, and I see it on like the Swedish for sale sites that Henrik is there quite a lot. Like, okay, and then he vacuums up some stuff that he's interested in, and then he puts them for sale, right? And I've done that, and often I've noticed, I think it's some kind of, I don't know what it's like. Some psychologist needs to jump in, but it's like I buy a racket, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play with this. I'm playing well with this, and as soon as I've ordered it, I'm like, all right, now I'm bored. And what's the next racket? And there's something like next time I play with it. Just because I committed to like, I just ordered the Prince Phantom, another one today, right? The 1820. Yeah. So I do now fear that the next time I play, because I've been playing well with it, I'm going to go to the core and be like, nah, I don't like this anymore. Now I have to sell it. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I think the worst one was, I was really vibing with the liquid metal Prestige, the one that was made in like Austria, like not the one that, was made in China. And like I cleaned up, like, but like you couldn't, I couldn't get it like on like TW or like a lot of the bigger online commerce stores, just because they discontinued at some point. And like I stocked up so many from like eBay, and then like I was like, oh, then when like the game evolves and I get older, it's like it's just too demanding of a stick for me to use. So I still have a couple left of those, but yeah, I think I got like over like a dozen of them. Because I loved it so much, and I was like, oh man, they're getting rid of it, so I got to stock up. And but yeah, it's not the first. That wasn't the first rodeo for me for switching rackets after acquiring like multiple sticks.
Yeah, it happens. It happened to me many times. I had 7 liquid metal radicals, the radical tours. I think soft drives I stocked up on like a crazy person, and now I'm being a little bit more disciplined with this stuff. Talking about the liquid, like the liquid metal rackets were great. Like, I mean, I have one Prestige. I guess you play with the MP then, or what? There was the MP.
Yeah. I had the mid, but like, I mean, that's just like way too demanding. I felt like, I wanted to be Murat Safin, so I got the mid. And then, no, I was just like, can't play with this thing. Especially when we're going like full poly in the 93. And I think like, I want to say it had measured it like, I don't know, like they're measuring it like slightly different than other manufacturers. So it actually maybe played a little lower than a 93. So yeah, I only got like 1 or 2 of those, and I was just like, this is not my playing style. So like, I need something that's a little more forgiving. And even the 98 wasn't like, super forgiving, because back then it was like an 1820. A lot of the sticks were like denser string patterns. I wish they did like a 1619. I feel like that would have been like amazing stick. I would buy them right now, but the 1619 Prestige liquid metal, like made in Austria though. So that would be I think an unreal racket.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, that feeling is quite similar to a PT57A in a way, but with like the pocketing in the string bed of that racket is just some. It feels like butter. Like you're like if you're hitting in the center of the racket, it's like I can put this ball anywhere on the court if you get time on the ball, right? So it's something addictive with that racket that makes it kind of really goaty in a way. But as you say, like they used to measure it the outside instead of the inside, which all the other manufacturers did. So a 98 for head was until like 2012 or something like a 95, right? So that is actually a 95 1820, which is very dense and tough to use. And the 93 was an 89.5, right? So that's the mid-size rackets, which Marat still wants to play with. If you talk to him today, my friend hit with him a few months ago or like 6 months ago, and he was still looking for these mids. He doesn't want to play with anything new. And Marat is a
That's
cool
funny.
guy.
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, So, I mean, I think that's probably like one of my holy grails is that stick. And then I think it's a little more pop than like a PT57A. Like I think the PT57A is like a little more plush. And I get why a lot of pros use it because it's it's probably a little more lower powered than like a liquid metal Prestige. But I think a lot of pros also use a lot from the liquid metal line. Like they still like I think some pros maybe still use it. Like maybe Bashar Gasquet and so it was a good drop for sure. And it was also made in like Austria, which I think the quality and the materials that they're using there, probably a little better than they maybe use now.
Yeah. When you go to the Austria factory, you can really smell the time through that place, right? It's like, and the way when you go to like the layup room and stuff like that, it's pretty cool. Like it's an iconic place because if you like old school head rackets, there's not that much that beats them in terms of feel and control. Like you're not gonna get any power with these bats, but like the feeling and control puts a smile on your face if you like that stuff, and it's kind of addictive in a way, right? So they did some magic that back in Austria back then. Now most things are made in China, and they are better dampened in many ways, and you get more power, and that's what we see with rackets. And Yonex doing great products as well, of course, in Japan with E-zones and whatnot. But it's a different kettle of fish with rackets these days, and also strings changing all the time. Like one of the last questions, because I know you have another meeting, is that how important is for you to follow trends? Like you're trying to do your own thing, but you also, I guess, must keep your eye on the pulse of the players and see what other brands are doing. And like how important is that for you?
Yeah, it's like super important. We also look at what the pros are using, right? I think like Ben Shelton, Casper Ruud, a lot of the Yonex players actually are using copoly hybrids. And that's actually like our first string that we released was a copoly hybrid because I was trying to think, okay, like how do we differentiate ourselves? We were just entering the game. So we had this copoly hybrid. It's like bulletproof tail. We still have it. Like if anyone wants to buy, like you have to search on our website and it's there, but it doesn't show up as like, kind of like a standard SKU. But like, we did that back in like 2018. I personally was using like a copoly hybrid, since college. I used Vocal Cyclone and then Yonex Polytor on the cross. So that was kind of like my hybrid back in the day. I think, Cyclone's like a pretty like underrated string. Like you don't really, like a lot of players don't know about it. But yeah, it was good. It was I think an economical string. So that was my kind of setup, and that's kind of why I wanted to drop a copoly hybrid myself, just because I think you can create such a unique feel by doing like a hybrid, right? Like if you're just doing a full poly, like it's hard to like differentiate yourself. I mean, there is some polys that are different for sure. And you can modify with the shape and the color and the gauge and the formula and whatnot. But I think you take it to like a whole nother level when you mix two different strings, right? And like I said, like we take it from like some of our strings are packaged from like two different manufacturers, right? And every manufacturer has like a very particular feel and sensation, right? Some from the strings that they manufacture. So yeah, like we just kind of like differentiate yourself by, kind of mixing and matching. And I think it's, kind of, it's been good for us. Like, I think that's why people give us a shot. And it's also like the learning curve for sure. Like I want to say over 95% of the tennis population, they don't know about copoly hybrids, like why you would even do that. But there are so many benefits, and yeah, you can always DM us, or I'm sure you get a lot of DMs as well. Like, what should I use? What are good recommendations? So, but the combinations are also like limitless, right? Like it's just endless with poly hybrids. There's like, even with just polys, like there's so many different options out there. And some people, like, they'll take our string, they'll match it, mix it with like other brands, and that's totally cool, right? Like we're totally supportive of that. Like they'll tell me they use the string on the mains, like they want a softer cross, and we have a lot of softer co-poly. So we're happy to make those recommendations and kind of hybrid with other brands. Like it's not uncommon for sure. But yeah, it's a fun process for me. Like I'm like a tennis nerd at heart, so it's tinkering is kind of what I like doing.
Yeah, it's just the true spirit. Are you doing multi-filament at some point, if people are wondering?
Working on it. But yeah, it's like for me, like our whole mindset too is like Toro is like the best cuttlefish, right? So it's either like the best or nothing. So there's a lot of like SKUs that we just haven't released. Like for example, grips. Like if it's not better than like a Wilson Overgrip or like a Yonex Super Grip, like why would I even take it to market, right? So I've tried like hundreds of grips, and like I can test it within like a couple of minutes. Like if I start sweating and I slide my head down the handle, and like if it doesn't stop, like it's not a good grip, and then go back to the drawing board, right? So same with multi-filaments, like if it's kind of not kind of to the quality or standard that we want it to be at, like we're just gonna pass. We just don't feel like we need to take something to market just to take it to market. So yeah, we are working on multis. I've tested way too many. We'll see. Nothing in the next couple of months for sure, not. But we're working, with this like a couple of manufacturers and trying to customize some stuff for us. And there's a lot of like, things that you can change, like the coating to make it like more durable. We also test it in like hybrids, right? It's with our co-polys as well, because our co-polys tend to have more, like snapback, more slick. So I think they would pair well with the multi. So definitely something I think we would like to offer in the omakase concept, right? Because not everyone wants to use a co-poly. Like they want something a little softer, but they also want to, like hit, with spin as well and hit a heavier ball. So yeah, definitely something we would like to release, but not something we'll just do it, right? We want to make sure it's like, something like I have to love the product. If I don't love the product, I just gotta pass. We already have too many SKUs as is.
I think that's a great mindset and a great way to end, because like that's the way you think most manufacturers should think. Like we want to create something that we love, and then we hope other people love it. Like that's how you have to approach, I think, life in general. Like if you want to create stuff, you want it to be the best way possible, and then you take it from there, and you can always improve and pivot, but you have to have that mindset. Otherwise you're not going to reach any excellence, which you're doing. So it's great products. I love your strings. I think it's a great strategy you have with different like the Omakase program, different hybrids, and fun to be a part of your journey there. And thanks for talking to me today, Eric.
Awesome. Yeah. We should run it back. That was a great chat with you, and always happy to be on the channel. So, and this was my first podcast, so hopefully your fan base could bear with me. But yeah, hopefully I can come on more often.
Yeah, anytime, man. You did well.
Awesome. All right, take care.